Hey everyone, welcome to the Riverside Project Podcast. My name is Chandler James and I get to serve on staff here as the Director of Church Mobilization. And this month I had the incredible opportunity to be one of our hosts on the podcast. And I got to host a really good friend of the organization, Mireya Scholes, who leads a foster care and adoption ministry at Atascocita Community Church here in Houston. Like I said, she's a great friend of the organization. She's done so much great work here in the city for many, many years. And in this episode, I hope that you find it really helpful. But Mireya shares her own story of being in foster care starting from the age of 13. She talks about the power of really developing your personal passion. And ultimately, she talks in depth about how to use the resources within your congregation or community to serve vulnerable kids and families. I really, really enjoyed the conversation that I got to have with Mireya, and I hope that you enjoy the conversation as well.
Welcome to the Riverside Project Podcast. We are mobilizing Houston to empower families and transform generations. We hope these conversations will give you a greater understanding of the issues facing our community and inspire you to find your place along the river.
Hey everyone, my name is Chandler James. I'm the Director of Church Mobilization here at the Riverside Project. And today on the podcast, we have Mireya Scholes. Mireya is married to her husband of 17 years, and together they have 4 amazing kids. She's a native Houstonian and has attended her home church here in Houston, Atascocita Community Church, for 20 years. And through that church has led a ministry that supports adoptive families, foster and kinship families, and families that are more at risk here within the city. Through the ministry of the church, they have a family resource closet where they support many families all across Houston. Mireya can often be found serving alongside her family with many different organizations throughout the city. Mireya, so glad that you're able to join us on the podcast today.
Thank you, Chandler. Thank you for the invitation. I was very humbled by the invitation.
Yeah, of course. Well, we'd like to kind of start just by if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I got to share a little bit, but and I know you and I know each other personally and have for over the last year or so, but would love for you just to, just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your family, things like that.
Okay, sure. My name is Mireya Scholes, like you already said, and I've attended Atascocita Community Church for about 20 years. I'm married to my husband, Terry, for going on 18 years in May.
Wow.
We have 3 boys and a daughter, ages ranging from 11 to 27. And I have a granddaughter. Her name is Skyline. She is 6, and she calls me Yaya, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, such a wide range of ages. So you're doing like some teenage years there, you're doing some adult years there. So that's a lot to navigate. That's cool.
It is a lot to navigate, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. So, well, yeah, tell me a little bit about, obviously you're talking about foster care space, some of your work with the church, but tell me, even before we start talking about some of the things that you're doing at the church, tell me about kind of where you started your journey in terms of being passionate about the foster care community and kind of this space.
Okay. So my passion honestly derived from me being in foster care at the age of 13. I had amazing foster parents. They did everything to help me feel welcome. They did everything to help me have like a sense of normalcy in my life.
Yeah.
They could have very easily, taken me out of my middle school and put me at the middle school in their backyard, but they went out of the way and drove me to the school that I was originally going to. It was an amazing experience for me, and I just want to be able to help foster families and foster children know that, yes, this is a difficult situation that you're currently in, but it doesn't define who you are, and it's not for the rest of your life, and it can change.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, some of that I don't even think I knew, but I'm wondering if you can share even like for those that are our listeners, like what some of the importance that you talked about of like having a foster family that was, it sounds like, considerate enough and like jumped through some of maybe the difficulties to make sure that you were able to be stabilized at the school that you were attending. Talk about like, why is that so important and what did that do for you like at such a young age?
Initially, my placement was a little bit difficult
Okay.
because for me, it was a culture shock. You see me, I'm Mexican, I'm Latina,
Yeah.
and grew up in the Mexican barrio. And my foster parents were Caucasian. And so initially, it was just a huge culture shock for me because everything was different. There was a lot of structure. The meals were different. And then we began going to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
And that was new for me. And, youth group. And that was new for me. But looking back, I am so grateful for my foster parents. It is there where I was saved.
Yeah.
One day in church, my foster dad, well, I didn't mention this, but my foster dad is a pastor of a church.
Okay.
And his wife, Anne, she wore many hats in the church. She did children's ministry. She played the piano during the services. She led the choir. So I had a very good role model in her, seeing her do all the things that she does.
Yeah, man, that is so awesome. I think it's super important, right? Like for foster parents, and I'm a foster parent myself, right? Of teenagers. And I think that transition, obviously, I think both for the family that is saying yes to taking a child into their home and opening their doors, but also, and especially so, I think for the youth that is entering into foster care to navigate, well, like what you're talking about, some of these cultural differences, but also even just like everyday life differences of, hey, the foster dad that in the home that I'm in is pastor at a church. Like that's a lot to navigate, right? And integrating into schools and, life into a new youth group and new people and new cultures and all of those things. And so I'm sure that's obviously very important for foster parents to be able to consider kind of some of those transitionary type of things.
Yes. I remember my very first dinner there.
Yeah.
It was, pork chop with some green beans and a glass of milk. And
you're
I'm
like,
Latina,
this is not gonna do.
I'm used to rice and beans and Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, those were just a few of the things that took adjustment to.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was great. It turned out that the church that they pastored, they ministered to the Hispanic community.
Oh, wow.
So even though my foster parents are Caucasian, it's like they have Latino blood running through their veins. So, in the end, it was great. And I still keep in touch with them today. I actually had a conversation with them this week. I told him I was going to be on your podcast and he's excited to see it. He's like, you need to send that to me.
Yeah, that's super cool that you're still in connection with them. And if it's okay that I ask, is that the only home that you were placed in?
That was the only placement.
Wow,
yes.
That's awesome. And were there other kids in the home or?
They had 4 children of their own at the time, all elementary age, 3 boys and a daughter.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing. And so that's kind of where your passion, I guess, for kind of this space. How quickly, like as you grew up and kind of went through the foster care system and integrated with another family, that did you step back into actually serving this space? Obviously, I know that you now serve through Atascocita Community and the church and the resource closet, but how soon, into your kind of adult life did you start serving in that space, or were you doing that, even at a young age?
Yeah, I didn't get my calling till like later in life. I would say in my 30s. I'm 51. So just to give you perspective, it was kind of late. But I remember when I was working at Atascocita Community Church, I was working there as a children's director. And I came in contact with Ashley Smalls. At the time, she was the faith-based
person. Yeah. At DFPS.
She was a faith-based specialist. So I came in contact with her, and little by little, I came to learn more of what she was doing and how we can engage.
Yeah.
So we started like supporting the Bear Room and the Rainbow Room, the local office at the Wilson, on Wilson Road.
Yeah.
Then that grew from, I want to have like a big Christmas party for foster families. So we did something like an angel tree, and our congregation bought gifts for the foster kids.
Yeah.
And then we invited the foster families to come to the church, and we just had this big party. We had, different stations with crafts and games and pictures with Santa. And I really loved that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Talk to me about, you mentioned Ashley Smalls, who at the time was on staff with DFPS here in the city. What So you were on church staff at Atascocita in the children's ministry. Is that what you said?
Yes, I was a children's director.
Yeah. Talk to me about how that first initial conversation started with DFPS and kind of when you left that meeting, what were you thinking? Like, I'm just very curious, you know, a church starting, to have those conversations. What did that look like? What were you thinking through? Things like that.
So for me, when I met her, I was looking for opportunities where children and the children's ministry could serve. I am a big proponent of children serving, not just in the church, but outside the church. So I guess I had a conversation with her of opportunities that what the kids can do at the church. Yeah. And she shared some opportunities. One of the things that we did, I took a group of kids to the Wilson office and we redecorated the visitation room there. Just to get kids involved. And it was there. I got a tour of the office and she was just gave me a lot of information and she just gave me like next steps of what to do. She would often send me emails of how I can go online and be able to listen into court hearings that were happening for foster children. Yeah. So she was very important in this role.
Yeah, that's
in
super
me stepping
awesome.
Into the space.
And so what year was that you had that initial conversation with DFPS?
That was probably like in 2020.
In 2020?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's when you guys kind of really started looking at, hey, what does it look like for our church to kind of step into that space?
Well, yes. What happened also is as I was working in children's ministry, God literally said, she's like, I want you to serve children that are where you once was. And I was like, okay. So I am also the type of person that gives 100% to my job. Right. And I didn't feel like I could do both. Right. Because I also wanted to give 100% to, serving foster families. Yeah. So I resigned from my position as children's director so I can fully dedicate my time to foster care.
How was that transition? Was that challenging for you or what did that look like?
I wouldn't say it was too challenging. I just knew that's what God wanted me to do. And, he's faithful and he provides. And we were able to establish the foster resource closet, the family resource closet. And very quickly, I started getting donations from our community, from people in our church, so that we can fill our closet so we can give foster families the tangible needs that they needed.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome. I wonder, how have you seen, like just hearing you share a little bit about the ministry and things like that. And I know, I get to see a little bit firsthand kind of what you guys do now there at the church, but how have you seen that change since 2020? Talk to me about kind of some of the different things. I know what you do, but talk to me about some of the different things that you guys are doing. What does the closet look like? Who are you serving? Things like that.
Okay, so our foster family resource closet serves foster families, kinship families, adoptive families, and at-risk families. Okay. So I serve usually through the care portal, which is a platform where CPS workers can go and enter needs. Right. And more recently, even with the Riverside Project, with requests that you have sent me. Yeah. So in our closet, we have clothes, furniture, diapers.
I feel like you're always texting me every other week. Hey, I have a dresser, and hey, I have a washer, and hey, I have these things. What does it look like to actually mobilize your people at the church and the community at large there in Atascocita to say, hey, we have these items, can you use them? What has that looked like, and how have you seen the team build around that idea or the community build around that idea? Have you seen that kind of grow over the years?
I have seen it grow. So the orphan care group at our church is like a small group. It's not like a whole ministry per se. So it's a small group led by me. So throughout the year, the church does have where they're promoting small groups. So everyone has an opportunity to share. All the small group leaders have an opportunity to share, what their group is about. And people are always wanting to join my group, for the orphan care team. And always wanting to donate items. I love that more people are starting to want to participate in, making contact with families and making deliveries. But everyone likes to help in a monetary way or giving an item.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've seen many people, I guess, at the church kind of step in different ways.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. Talk to me a little bit about, I mean, you were obviously on staff at the church through the kids ministry, stepped away from being on staff, and then now have been kind of leading this kind of initiative there in that part of the city. How has your church been supportive in that? Like, what has been communicating with the leadership there look like? And I don't know, some of those types of things.
I love collaborating with other churches. I love serving with like-minded people that share the same passion of serving vulnerable children and families. And I think it's super important to collaborate with different churches, because as we serve these families, if there's a request, say for a crib, which I had the crib, but I didn't have a mattress, I can simply call Heather Wolf over at Woodridge Church and say, hey, do you have a mattress? And she did. So we help each other fill needs if we don't have the entire needs that the family need at the time. So I think it's super important. Not every church has to feel like, oh, this is like a solo thing. Like, I'm going to do this by myself. This may sound cliche, like the little phrase that together we can do more, but it truly, together you really can do more. And I think that is very important. And together we do more. Yeah,
definitely. And I want to know here in a little bit, kind of hear maybe some stories that you've had, experiences that you've had with interacting with different families and kind of what your church has been able to do and walk alongside and support some of those families. But kind of like what you said about this idea of collaboration and serving, like churches serving each other really, and serving churches of, hey, I have a crib, but I don't have a mattress. Does this church have a mattress? I love some of the things that you guys are doing, both you individually, but also you guys as a church, like I think it was even a couple of weeks ago that there was a need, kind of in the northeast part of the city. And you guys were able to provide, items for other churches at times to then be able to deliver to the family. So it's not always about you guys being the people who deliver items to the families or connecting that with that family. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that. It's just been really cool to see you guys serve other churches so that those churches can then serve families well.
And I think that's super important, because I can't make those connections with the families all around Houston, but if there's someone closer that can make that connection with that family, I think that's very important, because they're closer and they're able to minister and continue a relationship with them and in future needs that they may have, or what else do you need? What support do you need? Or what can we do for your children? So I do think, even though there's a request that comes in that's not in my area, I still love to collaborate with those churches and help them make that contact with those families.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it kind of comes, we talk often here at the Riverside Project of this idea of, we can find the mattress. We could figure out the bunk bed or the diapers and the wipes. But I think at the end of the day, what we can't purchase is authentic and genuine relationships. And at the end of the day, the church is able to provide that. And so what a blessing that your ministry and the church and kind of what you guys are doing of saying, hey, we're actually going to set like our kind of like our logos and egos aside and say, hey, we're actually going to bless another church so that that church can then bless this family for the sake of not getting the need met, but actually walking alongside that family. And so I wonder, as you think through all of the families, which is many, that you've been able to serve over the last few years, if there's any stories that stick out where you guys have been able to walk alongside a family or serve a family, those types of things.
Yes, I do have a story. It was one that came through the care portal. It was an at-risk family. Dad lived out of state. Well, they were separated. Mom and dad were separated. He lived out of state. Mom was here in Houston. And she was under the influence driving, and she had a car accident with her children in her car. It was 3 children. And Dad was, trying to get a hold of Mom because he was sending his child support payment to her, but he got a call from Western Union, which is how he was sending the payment, saying that they kept calling him, say she hasn't picked it up. She hasn't picked it up. She hasn't picked it up. And finally, he started calling around like, where's my kids? Why isn't she answering her phone? Yeah. So it turns out that she was in jail. Her kids are in foster care. Their kids are in foster care. So then he immediately came to Houston to try to take custody of his kids. When he came, he had nothing for his children. So when the need came through the care portal, they were needing beds, they were needing clothes. And as I began to meet some of those needs, like I was visiting them often because every time I would go drop off the beds and the mattresses and some clothes, there was other needs as I began to speak with them. Yeah. So then I would go visit them again with the other needs. And their kids were amazing. They even started to call me Tia, which means aunt.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And they would see me park and they would run to my car like, I guess it was like Christmas for them. But, it's just important to connect with these families. Yeah. So, I mean, they're doing great right now. He actually called me last week.
Really?
And just to update me, and the kids are doing great. Yeah. They're doing great.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And so thank you so much for just being willing to step into that space. I think there's a lot of times, and we talk often here about interacting and jumping into the difficult and the broken alongside families in efforts to support and sustain and help them stabilize is a challenge, right? As for anyone to step in, but for churches to say, hey, we're willing to step into this space. And so talk to me, like, even it doesn't have to be that particular family, but just in general, have you seen families be pretty receptive after you like deliver items or needs, whatever those would look like, to kind of ongoing conversations? Like, are you noticing, hey, there are families that they want to be out of the water, if you would, and kind of stabilize?
Yes. Even with this family, one of the things that we did was also create like, had people in our church bring them meals, which was very helpful for Dad because he's like trying to work during the day and then come home to make meals for his kids. So we helped with that as well. So there are families that are very welcoming. They invite you into their home, which I love when that happens because you get to interact with the kids, which is my favorite thing to do. And I think when parents see that I truly do care and that I'm engaging with their kids, then they're more open to have conversations and to continue a relationship with you. And there are times when you go and make a delivery to a family and they're on their phone and they're just barely have the door open. Yeah. So you get both. Yeah. But I especially love being able to serve with those families that are more open to help and to more resources and to see how else we can, come alongside them to help them.
No, that's great. And I love the idea of kind of even what you said. And obviously you can't do this for every family and not every family may be open to it. But hey, we've been really connected to this family and this family like wants and is appreciative of kind of ongoing wraparound support and all of these things. And so you mentioned the families within the church that are providing meals and things like that. And I know you know this phrase, but we use this often, in this type of space that, hey, not everybody can't or should do the same thing, but everybody can do something. How have you seen that kind of be true within the ministry that you guys are leading at the church? That just there's a spot for everybody.
There is. So we currently have a family in our church. They received a placement of a little baby boy, and unfortunately, the funding that they get, I guess through WIC, does not cover the type of formula that he needs. So the formula costs like, I don't know, $30 for a small can. Sure. So just people in our church have been generous and they, buy formula or send the funds to me so that I can buy the formula so that we can continue to help this family, because that was an unexpected, I guess, for the family to not have, the funds to be able to cover this expensive formula that's not going to be covered by WIC.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. It's so cool to see. Yeah. I guess in different churches, right, do it
differently depending on what part of the city you're in or who's leading it or what the demographics of the church are. So it's cool to see kind of the different ways that people are able to kind of step into this space. I'm curious if you could, obviously you've been on staff at a church, you've transitioned off staff, but still work in collaboration with your church frequently. And your church is super supportive of you. In some of that, has there been challenges kind of as you've led in this space? And if so, like kind of what are some of those challenges?
Initially, I would say the first challenge was when I very first started the Family Resource Closet. I went to the storage space, told them what I'm doing. Yeah. They were like, yeah, great. We'll give you a discount.
Oh, there it is.
So I was paying, a very affordable price for this storage space. But that storage space filled up really quickly. Yeah. So I'm like, I think I need a bigger space. Mm-hmm. So they did. They moved me to a bigger space and charged just a little bit more. But then as the months went by, like that cost went higher and higher and higher. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But thankfully, my husband's very supportive and he was there for that. But then, we shared that with our pastor, and then Ruth with Westlake Church also came alongside, and then we began to partner. Mm-hmm. So now both of our churches are helping cover the cost of that storage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our church doesn't currently have space in the church for it. This is why we have to have a space.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, because I've been on the church campus and it's not, the biggest church in the city necessarily in terms of like the actual space that's available, right? And so it's super cool to think through, and every church is unique in that, right? And I know you've, interacted with other churches, and so it's kind of cool to see how different churches approach this space differently, right? Some have a foster closet, some have, a parents' night out or support groups or things like that. And so it's been cool to kind of see the ministry that you're leading and kind of what that's looked like. And for you guys, it looks like a storage unit, right? Where that's a collaboration between two churches where you guys can contribute in that way and serve families and walk alongside them really well. If there's something that you could tell somebody who might be listening to this and that's like, hey, I'm at a church, we're currently not in this space, whether it's a staff member, because you've had experience on that side too, or even just a volunteer who's saying, hey, I'm passionate, about this space and I want to serve vulnerable kids and families well, but I don't know where to start. What would you kind of encourage them in on kind of where to start?
I would start with the church leadership, just to make sure that they're also on board with what your passion is. And if they are, then I would start, training. I remember Marla Wortman gave me a list of things I should do before I start interacting with foster families. Right. She encouraged me to do like the TBRI training and go to the different trainings. And I love the one the Riverside Project offers with Jason. Mm-hmm. I think that's an excellent training. I think everybody should go to that. So get some trainings done, talk to your leadership, and then figure out exactly where along the river you want to serve. Yeah,
I love that you said that, because even actually at the end of our church leader trainings that we offer on a quarterly basis, we always kind of end those times by saying, hey, there's less to do here when you leave this room from the training and more to consider. And so I think sometimes churches, and myself, I have some staff experience at a church and, have served at different churches and that capacity. We leave thinking, oh, there's something immediately for me to do because the needs are so urgent, but actually there's much more to consider, right, than there is oftentimes to do. So things like, I love what you said about how, we left the training or we left this, meeting and we went back to our church and said, hey, okay, where are we at along the river? What are we already doing? Do we have a food pantry? Are we serving locally already? Are we not serving? And kind of figuring out, hey, what are we already doing along the river? Kind of looking at the data, right, in particular parts of the city and seeing kind of, hey, where do we fit kind of in that? And so that's really good.
And then even with your volunteers, like where do they want to serve? Are they someone that wants contact with the family? Or are they someone that just wants to, come and organize your closet? Because there are so many things to do. Do they want to do the shopping for a certain request? There's a lot of things that can be done.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, yeah, and we're almost kind of done with our time here, and I've enjoyed having this conversation with you. I think you bring a lot of value to those who work within church spaces or serve within church spaces, but also those who don't, and just kind of looking at, hey, the church is uniquely positioned, right, to care for vulnerable kids and families in this way. And so I am curious, like, how, in just hearing kind of at the beginning of this conversation, your experience as a former foster youth and kind of going through the system and having to navigate some of those things. When you reflect on that time, is there, so kind of two questions here. You can pick which one you want to answer first. But when you think about that time, is there something that you would, encourage the church to consider, kind of from a former foster youth perspective, a church or foster parents or things like that? And B, what encouragement would you give a former foster youth?
Okay, so for the church, I would say the advice I would give to them is, like, know who foster families are in your church and find out what needs that they have and how can you best help them with whatever need that may be, and just let them know that you are a support system for them and that you love what they are doing, because not everybody wants to open their home to foster care, because it is hard. But like how we talked about earlier, everybody can do something, and if we can come alongside them to provide, babysitting while mom has a doctor appointment, or provide meals or whatever other things they need, I think it's super important just to be aware of who's in your church. Yeah.
No, that's super good. We talk very often about just like, the different ways that people can, jump in and be involved and all of those things, but how important it is for churches to actually, and you mentioned this, like, to identify those families, even within the church, of saying, hey, these families, they're not just the families that are outside of the church, right? And as you know this, like, sometimes it's families that are within the walls of our church. So being able to identify in kind of creative ways, right? Whether it's through form or through, asking from the platform, or, just in small groups or relationships, of identifying families, of saying, hey, this is a foster family that needs support, or this is a former foster youth that needs support, things like that. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So, and what
I'm
about,
really excited about something that's about to happen.
Yeah.
This will probably air after. So at the end of the year, we did a Christmas catalog so that our congregation can donate money to cover the cost of an adoption. Yeah. And any overflow of that is going to go to the orphan care closet and, needs that to help cover needs. Yeah. The family that's currently in our church that has the baby, with the issue with the formula that's not being covered by WIC. So we're about to surprise them with
that's super cool.
A lot of formula for the next 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And diapers for now and for the future, and wipes.
Yeah, that's so incredible. So it's been really, really cool to see your church just step in and just say, hey, we're going to support. And you guys, man, and I know we've already said this, but you guys do such a great job of, like, all along the river and helping your own people find their place, right? Whether it's financially giving in support of a family, and supporting the closet and all of these things. And so, that's super exciting.
Yeah, I am excited. That's probably going to happen this week.
That's very cool.
We're waiting for the stuff to come in. So.
Yeah. So tell me real quick, what, in terms of, if you could give advice to, or encouragement to, maybe a former foster youth, what would you encourage them with?
I would say that, yes, you were a foster kid, or you are a foster kid, but being a foster kid doesn't define who you are. It is a part of your life. Yeah. It's a part of your testimony. And how can God use that to, help other people in the future and to bring honor and glory to Him? For me, that didn't happen until I was on staff at the church at, 30 years old or so. Right. And I was 13 when I was in foster care. So just know that this is temporary, and that the best is yet to come. Yeah. And if you just allow God to use your pain and suffering, He can do a lot with it. Yeah. I did read, what actually helped me was the Purpose Driven Life book. Yeah. At one point when that book first came out, our pastor had the whole congregation read it. Yeah. This was years ago. Yeah. Because I would always ask myself, why did this happen to me? Right. Why did I have to go through all the pain and suffering that I went through? But it wasn't until I read that book many years later that, it made it very clear that God does have a purpose for my life. I'm not an accident, and he does not waste a hurt.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe he's going to do something with all my pain and suffering. And what is it going to be? At that point, I still didn't know what it was, because I hadn't started working at the church yet.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And that's so good. It's hard when we're in the middle, right, of kind of some of that pain and suffering and, you know, trials, if you would, to see kind of, hey, in years, you're going to be able to use that. And you've done, I think, just an incredible job of using your story and using your platform to share that story with those at your church and even care for this community really well. So really grateful for you.
Yes. And I also want foster kids to find, well, as an adult, I guess, when they're on their own or whatever, to find a church home is so important. Yeah. Like, you need that community to just someone just to talk to.
Yeah, it's just about having that relationship, right? Of, hey, you know, just having people there who love and support you and are there for you and can, support you in all the ways. So.
Yeah. ACC has been our home for 20 years and they are an extension of our family. Yeah. And they've been there for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, you know, everybody goes through that. And, you know, we all need that wonderful support system. Yeah.
No, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing real quick with our kind of last 5 minutes of the podcast. We like to ask our guests like kind of just 5 quick questions, a little bit more lighthearted, things like that. So you don't have to, necessarily share everything or whatever, but you can answer some of these questions. So the first question I have is, what app on your phone, I'm assuming an iPhone, hopefully an iPhone, but
it's an iPhone.
There you go. What is your current favorite app on your phone? Yeah. Not necessarily the one that you click all the time, but what is your favorite app on your phone?
Well, besides the YouVersion app, my favorite app right now is Impulse. It's a brain training app that helps, you know, keep the brain sharp.
Brain training. I need some brain training. Impulse. There we go. Very cool. Okay, second question. What is something that most people are surprised to know about you or your family?
Okay, about me personally, since this is lighthearted, I can breathe fire.
You breathe fire. Great. It is a video podcast, so we can see it.
I discovered this working at the church.
That's funny.
We did a series called Believe It or Not, and we were doing crazy things for bumper videos for each Sunday, and we were breathing fire one day, and I loved it, actually.
You're hilarious. That's cool.
Also, I think what makes our family a little unique is that we have a professional boxer in our home, Giovanni.
Okay.
And boxing.
That's your son?
Yes, Giovanni is my son. He is 24. He just turned 24, and he just signed his contract with Overtime Boxing, so he's pretty excited.
Very cool. Very cool. Cool. Third question. Do you have any pet peeves?
I do.
You're like, a lot of them.
I have a lot of them.
What's one pet peeve that you have?
Okay, I'm going to say 2. One is like, you know, you're inside, you're nice and warm and cozy, and then someone comes with really cold hands and, you know, touches you. I don't like that.
Yeah.
And then another one is when someone accidentally like pulls my hair, and it's an accident. Yeah. I think it's
you breathe fire on them.
I breathe fire on them. Don't pull my hair. No, I think honestly it's probably a trigger from my childhood or something. Like I get a little yank. It can be an accident. It doesn't matter. I immediately like, please don't pull my hair.
Yeah, that's funny. Very cool.
I probably need counseling or something.
That's hilarious. Okay, fourth question. What is the first job that you ever had?
I worked at Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen.
Did you always tip the ice cream over like you're supposed to?
I did. And my first day, the banana splits were on sale. So I was making these huge banana splits. So when people would come and order, they're like, I want her to make mine.
That's funny.
And then they came and said, you're putting too much ice cream. You're supposed to weigh it. I'm like, well, y'all haven't trained me yet. So I was making some good banana splits.
There you go. That's so funny. Now you can make it for your family. Look at that.
Oh, I do.
There you go.
Occasionally.
Last question. So I know you used to work for a church and in children's ministry. When you reflect on that time, what's one of the things that you miss most about being on staff at a church?
Well, two parts. As children's director, I think what I miss the most is hosting family fun nights. I used to love to do that, just because I know everybody is so busy, and I wanted to create a space where families can just come and be together and just enjoy each other. Whether it's, we used to do like meals, and then, you know, there's a daddy-daughter dance going on in one room, and then mother and son, you know, Nerf wars or something in another room, and just time where families can just be together. And of course, obviously going to preteen camp, all that fun, not sleeping, and seeing children.
Not sleeping. That's my favorite.
Seeing children come to Christ.
Yeah.
And then, as far as like with staff, I miss, you know, going to conferences. Our pastor's huge on, you know, equipping his team to, you know, to serve the Lord. So they used to go to sticky teams. Well, we used to go to sticky teams.
That's funny.
And so I do miss, you know, going to conferences.
Yeah. That's great. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and being willing to share your personal story, but also all of the work that you guys are doing in and through the church. And so we're so grateful for you and the church here at Riverside Project. So thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a beautiful opportunity.
Yeah, thanks.
To those listening, we hope these conversations have inspired you to find your place along the river. And we welcome you to join us in bringing hope and renewal to the city of Houston. If you'd like more information on how to get involved, please visit riversideproject.org and submit a contact form. We'll see you next time.